हेलो शार्क्स, मैं हूं इंडियन पिक्सेल्स और मैं लेकर आया हूं आपके पास इस देश के लैंग्वेजेस, पॉप कल्चर और म्यूजिक के काफी इजी टू अंडरस्टैंड वीडियो एसेज लेकर। हमारा प्रोडक्ट इंडिया के इंटरकनेक्टेड यूनिवर्स को एक ऑब्जेक्टिव तरीके से एक्सेसिबल बनाता है टू अर्बन मिलेनियल्स एंड जेनजी। हमारा आस्क है 1 मिलियन व्यूज फॉर 10 मिनट्स ऑफ माइंड ब्लोइंग स्टैट्स एंड इनसाइट्स। मुझे काफी खुशी होगी फॉर यू टू सपोर्ट इंडियन पिक्सेल्स।
मैं यहाँ पे किसी को कुछ करने नहीं बैठा।
वैसे क्योंकि मैं फार्मा से हूँ, मैं यूट्यूब को अच्छी से समझ जाती हूँ। सोच बाय मोहक मंगल इज एक्चुअली माई फेवरेट यूट्यूब चैनल। मुझे आपका कंटेंट उससे काफ़ी सिमिलर लगा, बट आई डोंट थिंक यू आर द सेम लेवल येट। सो फॉर दैट रीजन आई एम आउट, बट ऑल द बेस्ट। आई सी दैट पैशन इन यू, सो आई डेफिनेटली सब्सक्राइब टू यू।
मजाक है क्या?
पिछले कुछ हफ्तों से सोशल मीडिया इज फ्लडेड विद मीम्स, रील्स एंड पोस्ट्स ऑफ दिस वेरी पॉपुलर शो शार्क टैंक इंडिया। इस शो का कॉन्सेप्ट वैसे पूरी दुनिया में काफी बार ट्राई हो चुका है। फर्स्ट इन जापान इज द शो माने नो थोरा, मीनिंग टाइगर्स ऑफ मनी, जो कि फिल्म हुआ था बहुत वियर्ड कैमरा एंगल से। फिर ये गया यूनाइटेड किंगडम में और बन गया ड्रैगन्स डेन, एंड फाइनली इट केम टू यूएस, जहां पे इसका पॉपुलर नाम पड़ा शार्क टैंक।
You are remarkably entertaining. I firmly believe that you'd be hugely successful if you did a comedy routine. But on this business, I'm out.
At a time when most Indian TV shows have gone batshit crazy, Shark Tank is a breath of fresh air. जिस देश में हम एक दूसरे को अपनी सैलरी नहीं बताते, आज हम वैल्यूएशन और इक्विटी की बात कर रहे हैं। ऐसा नहीं है कि इस टाइप का शो इंडिया में पहले कभी टेलीकास्ट नहीं हुआ है। There was a show with a very similar theme called The Vault that was conducted in 2016. इसके कुछ episodes YouTube में भी हैं। Even Bangladesh has their own version of Shark Tank that was telecast in 2019 called The Tiger Cage. And now very recently, as you probably know, the government of Delhi also launched their own program called Business Blasters. But then the impact that Shark Tank India has made, that's unparalleled. Maybe through its interesting personalities of the judges, the set design, the right amount of editing, inke thode more drama, and even keeping the language in English. It has enabled it to become a household name. Especially मुझ जैसे लोग जिन्होंने बचपन से business का ब नहीं सीखा था. For them, probably the show is an eye-opener. Now that the season is over and we have access to the data, 35 episodes, 118 pitches, mine is probably Piyush's fake pitch, so let's say 117. क्या सीख सकते हैं हम? How does one get a deal on Shark Tank India? What kind of pitches work and what kind of pitches don't work? And if you magically found yourself on the next season, how can you maximize your chances for a successful deal? Well, let's find out. Of the total 117 pitches, we see that 64 got funded on the show, with a total of 42 crore rupees, which brings a percentage to 54.7% success rate. सही है। इसका मतलब है कि स्टार्टअप में इन्वेस्टमेंट लेना is easier than predicting कि हेड जाएगा tails. Well, if it's too good to be true, it usually is the case. Actually, शो में टोटल 117 नहीं बट 198 पिचेस हुए थे, जिनमें से 67 सक्सेसफुल हुए थे। So as you can see, काफी सारे अनसक्सेसफुल पिचेस कभी टेलीकास्ट हुए ही नहीं। Shitty. Probably the show was trying to pick the best of the best. Well, I'm not even complaining because I think part of the fun of the show was to see so many startups get funded. It made us feel excited. Therefore, the actual success rate comes from a high 54% to a decent 34%. Wait, but there's more. This is just the people who were selected to come to the studio. Actually, a total of 62,000 startups had applied and just 198 were shortlisted. So, 61,802 startups never even got a chance to pitch to the Sharks. If you consider that, the success rate comes to 0.1%, which, by the way, is even lower than the acceptance rate of IITs. So, सबसे बड़ी चुनौती है to first make the cut. Aditi Gupta, the founder of Menstrupedia, mentioned in her Instagram post that the selection process is very lengthy. There are a lot of questions and pitch videos that applicants are asked to submit, on the basis of which they are invited to the studio. Therefore, tip number 1 is to ace your application. Ensure that your application form is properly filled and you have submitted a very high quality pitch video so that you stand out from so many people. Now, let's talk about the team composition. According to a LinkedIn post by Pandey Anupam Mittal, of the 67 selected teams, 87% had founders with no IIT or IIM degrees. So you shouldn't worry if you don't come from an elite college. Then, 67% of the teams had at least one co-founder who was below the age of 25. And 60% of the teams had never been funded previously, which also makes sense because if you have already been funded, you either have too little equity to spare or your valuation is already too high for the Sharks to match. Now, let's look at something really interesting. If we look at the success by the team composition, we notice that the most common combination, that is one male and one female, also succeeded the least with just 44% success rate, while the combination that succeeded the most was of two males with a success rate of 70%. If we look at the geography, we also see that about 50% of the teams were from just two cities of India, Mumbai with 18 teams and Delhi with 13. If you include the other NCR cities like Gurugram, Noida and Panipat, we also see that the number of winning teams from NCR is actually equal to the number of teams in Mumbai. This parallels the rise of Delhi in the startup ecosystem of India. Lagging behind but not too behind is Bengaluru with 12 winning teams. So that was the teams that did get funding. If we just look at the participation rate, well, there is no competition. Maharashtra is the clear winner. It should be especially noticed that the Southwest India does really well, while East and Northeast India kind of lag behind. This also correlates with the general startup ecosystem supported by the states. So the next step is to be based around a city where you can get access to the rich startup ecosystem of India. Sure, entrepreneurship is booming in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, but still a lot of action is happening around these startup hotbeds. Alright, now that we know what works for the team, next क्या आएगा line में? Next आएगा the idea itself. अगर हम sector wise देखें, we have classified all the teams into 8 categories: food and beverages, lifestyle, clothing, healthcare, construction, transportation, technology, and sports. This classification might be a little subjective because the boundaries for each sector is kind of blurry. For example, GrowFitter is a health-based app, but we have classified it under health because that is its primary role. But for Aas Vidyalay, which is a edtech startup, we have classified it under technology. The objective of this classification was to have as few categories as possible, so we made some qualitative calls here. We see that a majority of these funded ideas, 15 out of 64, were from the domain of food and beverages, followed by 12 ideas in lifestyle and 11 each in healthcare and technology. Now, that might tempt you to think that the food and beverage sector is the best sector to innovate in, but that would be just one half of the story. Look at this chart for example. It shows how successful startups were in each sector. सच तो ये है कि food and beverage में सबसे ज़्यादा rejections भी हुए थे. And therefore, on a relative basis, while food and beverage is popular, it is also very competitive. Bro, isn't this crazy? All 5 out of 5 startups got funded in transportation. Otua, the electric auto vehicle, Altor, the smart helmet, Motion Breeze, the smart electric motorcycle, Revamp Moto, the e-bike, and Boo Scooters, the rental e-bikes. All of them got funded. Similarly, technology ke field mein bhi we see a very high rate of success. So, what does this indicate? Probably that fields like technology and transportation are the need of the hour in today's India. While a lot of teams and sectors like food and beverage, clothing, etc. were funded, you would have noticed that the Sharks regularly complained about replicability. There's usually nothing proprietary in fields like clothing or lifestyle, so they can be copied very easily. Usually, innovation in tech and transportation is proprietary, so it is harder to replicate, and therefore it might be one of the reasons why these sectors were well funded. But ये बोलना कि सारे Sharks tech and transportation में invest कर रहे थे, that would also be wrong. Overall, this is the distribution of how the total 42 crores got invested. But if you look at how each Shark invested, it tells a very different story. Notice how clearly different each of their investment strategies were. Piyush, for example, has 50% of his investment in tech, while Vinita invested over 50% in food and beverages. Namita invested in... हाँ bolo. Pharma, correct. And we see that Anupam has a bias towards lifestyle. Also, fun fact that he's the only Shark to have a non-zero investment in every category. So his portfolio is the most diversified of them all. Anupam है तो काफी शातिर. Ghazal बाकियों से काफी अलग. She had her favorites in food, lifestyle and healthcare. Sorry for the pun. Ashneer has a bias for 2 domains, the hard sciences of transportation and technology, and also consumer-focused ideas like food and lifestyle. And then there's Aman Babu, who found his favorites in food, healthcare, and technology. One can see that their investment kinda aligns with what they are involved in real life, and therefore naturally have an expertise over. So, क्या सीखने को मिलता है हमें इससे? Know who your target shark is. Based on your idea ka sector, have a mental idea of which shark might potentially invest in you. It will help you to customize your pitch towards a particular shark. Maybe you can try something like having a special demo for them or give them something extra that can drive them up to be nice to you. But also keep in mind that you have to be tactful about it. If you're very explicit about it, the other sharks who might have invested in you will likely back out. And if you haven't started yet, it is a good idea to think of innovating in sectors that are more likely to get funded. Sectors like technology and transportation are India's need of the hour. Sure, they have higher barriers of entry as opposed to food, clothing and lifestyle, but they are also more likely to help you become a monopoly. Alright, drum rolls. The most important part of the video is here, the ask. I have many suggestions, so consider it as a bonus for sticking around for so long. The golden question is, how much investment should you ask for? Well, that's a difficult question to answer. It depends mostly on how much capital you think you need to grow. And in exchange for this capital, you need to offer equity. That is a portion of your company. So let's say you're a brand that sells suits and you need 25 lakh rupees to set up your supply chain. So you'll ask for 25 lakhs and you will offer some equity. But how much? This is where the game starts. Your offered equity will depend on your company's valuation. Valuation means how much your company is worth. And how do you measure it? Measuring a company's valuation is both an art and science. For large companies, it is calculated by the market capitalization. But for an early stage startup, there are no shares or share prices. So we have to rely on a thumb rule, which is to multiply your revenue with a number. This multiplier can be around 3 to 4 for a growing sector like technology, and it can be as low as 0.5 for a service-based sector. So if your suit company earned, let's say, 20 lakhs in the last year, and you think there's a high chance of growth because of a material that you have developed, you can use a multiplier like 5x to get the valuation of your company. So 20 lakhs multiplied by 5 will be 1 crore, which will be your company's valuation. So to get 25 lakhs in funding, you should offer 25 lakhs divided by 1 crore, which is 25% of your company. Therefore, the more valuable your company, the less equity you need to give off. From the perspective of the shark, they want to get more equity, which means it is in their interest to reduce your valuation. This is why the sharks ask everyone for their revenue, because it gives them an idea about how much your company should be valued. What both the sharks and the contestants are negotiating over is how much should the multiplier be. On Shark Tank, the most common ask was 50 lakhs for 5% of the company. But the average value of a successful deal was around 62 lakh rupees for 17% of the company. So we see that the sharks on an average, with their shark-like skills, were able to force the contestants to lower the average valuation from 10 crores to 3.6 crores. Show me the company that got funded with the highest valuation was Revamp Moto for a valuation of 66 crores. Revamp ka pitch is not just the best pitch in my opinion, it is also the most entertaining one. It is this pitch over which the A sharks, Anupam, Ashneer and Aman were fighting like wildcats. And it gave us golden memes like this.
मेरे से बड़ा दुकान का नेटवर्क किसी के पास नहीं है। वो हम भी बना लेंगे।
All startups that put their valuation about 100 crores were rejected. Moonshine Meats for 160 crores, Shades of Spring for 300 crores, QZen's Labs for 400 crores, and Gopal's Chappan for, oh my god, 1,200 crore rupees. And these people weren't just rejected, they were roasted and rejected. Because the sharks found it disrespectful that they asked so much without any sales or patents to justify such high valuation.
आपको लग रहा है कि हमें कुछ नहीं आता, आपने 400 मांगे या करीब 800 मांग लोगे तो हम दे देंगे। थोड़ा बहुत हमें भी आता है, थोड़ा बहुत।
तो आप में बिजनेस की सेंस नहीं है। आप रीवैल्यूएट करो कि आपको करना भी ये है या पेटेंट बेच के साइड हो जाओ।
Therefore, the biggest takeaway is not to hyperinflate your valuation. Ensure that you can justify your valuation multiplier. How do you justify the valuation multiplier? Well, you can do it in multiple ways. The most obvious one is to have high sales or revenue. Try to keep the multiplier around 3 to 4. So, if you're asking for 60 lakh rupees, you should have made at least 15 lakh rupees in the last year. And that assuming your sector is a high growth one. The second way is to hold a patent or a demoable prototype. I'll let Anupam ji explain in his sexy voice.
प्रोडक्ट में बहुत सारा पैसा इन्वेस्ट करने के पहले उसका एक किफायती वर्किंग सैंपल बनाया जाता है इस सैंपल को प्रोटोटाइप कहते हैं। इससे आप मार्केट टेस्टिंग करके प्रोडक्ट की खामियों को सुधार भी सकते हैं।
What a simple voice. Anyway, back to a point. The third is business clarity. You should know your business in and out so that you have some actual leverage over your competition. Let's now take a look at Revamp's pitch and see how they were able to justify the 66 crore valuation.
हमें ये बताते हुए बड़ा गर्व हो रहा है कि हमें ऑलरेडी 50,000 गाड़ियों की ऑर्डर मिल चुकी है, जिसका ऑर्डर वैल्यू है 250 करोड़ रुपए। We took the challenge, we worked day and night और हमने ये प्रोटोटाइप उनको डिलीवर किया।
Notice how they had a contract of 250 crore rupees already. They had a patent, they had demoable prototype, they were also able to answer Namita's challenging question, and their team also had a very good background with relevant experience. And all their personality was also quite fine. Yeah, that also matters. So basically, they hit all the right boxes. Take Kamlesh for example, on whom everyone had given up, but just because of his nice personality and grit, he was able to get a good deal from Piyush. So in the end, being a good, decent human being won't hurt you. At least on Shark Tank. So, in your case also, you have to ensure that you meet all these criteria. Otherwise, you should be prepared for drastically reducing your valuation. That might happen in two ways. Either by losing a lot of equity, like Hammer Lifestyle, who had to give up 40% of his company, Isak Fragrances, which gave up 50% of the company, and Sid 7 Designs, who basically lost 75% of his company. If the sharks smell even a tiny bit of weakness, any hodgepodge with your fundamentals, you should be ready to lose a lot of equity because they are taking a risk on you. Or you may go the second option and just devalue yourself by asking for too little. There were companies here who asked for as little as 5 rupees and 100 rupees. Please don't be like them. So, to summarize, you are most likely to succeed if you are a young team with an idea from a tech or transportation sector, are based out of Mumbai, Delhi or Bangalore, you have asked around 50 lakh rupees in exchange for 5% equity and still have negotiation room for giving off more equity, have at least 10 lakhs in revenue, possibly have a patent or prototype, have clarity of thoughts and expertise, and have a nice personality. You don't have to hit all the boxes, but hitting as many boxes as you can will definitely help you. Now, after all this, I'm kind of confused by one thing. Why are there companies that come asking for just 5 rupees or 100 rupees? Is it because they want to work with the sharks so bad? Well, kinda yes, but there's also an obvious reply. It's free marketing. Just appearing on Shark Tank without even getting a deal still makes you a household name in India. Here's the founder of Tags Foods, for example, telling it as it is.
I think अगर आप अपने बिजनेस को शार्क टैंक पर देखना चाहते हैं, राइट? तो अगर मैं सिर्फ पिच की बात करूं, ओके, आप पिच को एज पिच ना देखें, आप उस पिच को ये देखें कि आप शायद एक 10 मिनट का या 12 मिनट का एड बना रहे हैं, राइट? तो आपका जो ओपनिंग 3 मिनट है वो किसी टीवी के एड से कम नहीं होना चाहिए.
You see, जब Shark Tank first launch हुआ था, so a lot of these highbrow gurus of the startup world were bitching कि ये क्या ड्रामा चल रहा है, इस शो से entrepreneurs को एक गलत मैसेज जाएगा, ये वो. I honestly disagree with them. I think the show was amazing. Without your dramatic music, without these interesting judges, who by the way were all auditioned for being cast as judges, I think this show wouldn't have made such an impact. An idea does not sell itself. It needs that masala to reach more people. You see, as Aman Babu says it,
यार हम इंडियंस हैं, हमारे अंदर इमोशन है, हम इंडिया से हैं, इमोशन है हमारे अंदर, इमोशन.
we need emotions. Indians thrive on emotions. For the longest time, Indians made a lot of stuff, but we somehow lagged behind the West when it came to creatively marketing our ideas, presenting our ideas. It is for this reason that people like Steve Wozniak dare to say that Indians lack creativity. I think Shark Tank India symbolizes the start of an era of India where we aren't just great engineers and managers, but we are also great marketeers, designers, and creators. I think while India has a ton of entrepreneurial material, it was just accessible to some selected privileged people. This show, Shark Tank India, with all its masala, has enabled the vision of entrepreneurship to reach so many people. I think the show symbolizes a great change in this country. From the early communist spirits of our country in the 1950s, to the socialist Nehruvian policies, then to a gradual liberalization in 1991, to now having full-blown entrepreneurship shows in 2020. India is slowly and steadily becoming a capitalist nation. And I think it's a good change. Rather than looking at problems and wondering why doesn't the king or the government solve it, we are now starting to think, why don't I solve it? This is a big change in mindset of our country. Every problem is a potential opportunity. Helping people need not come from a place of charity and goodwill. It can also come from a place of win-win situation and making profit. Yeah, I agree it isn't possible for everyone to just start up. You need some kind of privilege, even if it is really basic privilege. But I think it's still a great first step. I'd rather see my country filled with optimistic people excited about the future, where they're job makers, than seeing pessimistic people sad about everything being broken. Well, I'm glad the show exists. I'm excited about the ripple effect it is going to have in the society. And I cannot wait for season 2. Shark Tank India, bring it on. By the way, we have created a Shark Tank India simulation web app where you can pitch your idea and a machine learning model will predict which sharks are likely to invest in your idea. Sounds fun, isn't it? Well, do check out the app in the link below. This video was made possible with the research and script by Dev, Gauri and Sarthak. And if you liked the video, do remember to subscribe. I'll see you again in the next one. Alright, wrap up. Hit it!